And I will yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, the Republican leader.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my friend for yielding. I want to thank him for his friendship and his work. I rise in support of this legislation, and I want to thank Congressman Barr for his leadership in bringing this legislation to the floor in a strong, bipartisan way. I'm proud to support the Carroll Act in honor of Andy's lovely wife, the late Carol Barr. Like everyone who knew her, we know the moment and where we were when we heard of her passing. It was sudden. It was unexpected. It was something no one ever thought could happen. If you ever met her, you were her friend. See, she was a kind and graceful person with a heart for service. As I speak today, I remember her laugh. Throughout her own career and working with Andy, Carol devoted her time and energy to giving back to the community. She had a service heart, all about the 6th District. You see, I met her years ago. Met her when she first knew Andy before either daughter were born. I was able to watch them grow. Never watched the look in their mom's eyes. I remember this one time, Andy, when we were there, and she was holding Eleanor. Eleanor was showing me her parade wave. You see, Carol led a highly respected career in sales at Pfizer. She served as executive director for the Henry Clay Center for Statesmanship, and she volunteered at the Junior League of Lexington and the University of Kentucky's College of Communication and Information National Advisory Board. It was her faith, her patriotism, and her generosity towards her neighbors were manifest. For those who attended the time to honor her life, you'd hear speaker after speaker after speaker would tell the moment in time they could tell you the moment Carol walked into their life. The interesting part, when they told it, their life got better, but Carol never walked out of their life. That was the interesting. And oh, how she loved Andy and her 2 beautiful girls, Eleanor and Mary Clay. You know, this disease strikes you at a time you don't even know. You just come back from doing something most all of us do, the photos, family photos, even getting ready for a campaign. You look at her face, you look at the children's face, and you know Andy, Carol did all the work. Carol prepared everybody. Andy's a great legislator. Carol made everything happen. I love when I meet people, I meet early on. I'd always ask Andy and Carol, how did you first meet? Andy would tell you the story. He saw her, and he could tell you the moment it happened. And he had a plan. His plan, he had it all mapped out. He was going to ask for her business card. He just didn't realize she didn't have one. The problem with Andy is he didn't have a backup plan. But the great thing about it is God had already taken care of this. God had already had a plan for Andy and Carol. 8 weeks later, he brought them back together again. And this time, Andy didn't let her get away. And they were married for more than 13 years. I cannot tell you the loss we feel. Andy feels it every day. The community feels it every day. There's not a day goes by that we don't pray for him and the girls. There's not times when I'd pick up, just call and check on them. I remember doing it recently. He said it was a good weekend. He took the girls, just the girls and him, and went to the place that the Barr family would always go to. It was in the woods. It was time of reflection. There's others in this body that have had to deal with this type of loss. A loss in your own family. You all know the different ways to suffer. We're all familiar with the different 5 stages of grief. The denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and the acceptance. Andy didn't have time for any of them. But Andy channeled his grief into what I believe is the sixth stage, the Lawmaker. And he did something important, working to honor Carol today, but save lives for everybody else in the future. We're going to do work today, and most people, when they talk about Congress, wish we did every day. There's not going to be partisanship. I think if you met Carol, it didn't matter what side of the aisle on you. It'd be harder to attack Andy. We're going to save lives for the future. And that's exactly what this bill does, Madam Speaker. It saves lives. More than 25,000 Americans die from valvular heart disease every year. And many, like Carol, should know outward signs. You don't have a warning. You kiss your spouse goodbye, you're going to go down the street. Next thing, something goes wrong. Too often, the diagnosis comes down to luck. Carol got an indication, but we had COVID. We said to wait to have a procedure. We must do better. Our doctors and families deserve to have better information so they can make the right decisions about treatment. The Carol Act will help get them the information by providing $20 million in research grants to study the valvular heart problems. Andy, your work to pass this bill in honor of Carol has truly been an inspiration to all of us. All those moments that I had an opportunity to spend with them, I always reflect on this one. Like many of you, collectively we'll do a trip to Israel. Legislatively, foreign policy. There was this moment in that trip, and you know that trip, it's filled with meetings after meetings after meetings, and you're on a different time zone, and it gets tiring, and from up early to late at night. And Carol would always be smiling. We were visiting this one facility with the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus has spoken. I remember standing next to her, reading the story in the Bible. I remember her smile. More importantly, I meant her love for all. I know she's with us today. I know she's proud of Andy. She's proud of Eleanor and Mary Clay. Her work on life on this earth was not long, but her impact was great. Today, what we're doing is right. Today, what we're doing is going to make tomorrow better. Andy, your dedication, which is so ably represented in this important bill, is fitting tribute to Carol. She had a heart for service. Anyone that knew her will tell you that. Today we're going to honor her memory and we're going to salute you. We're going to salute that Carol made a difference. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And she will not be forgotten. Be it through the caringness, the sweetness, the kindness of her daughters, but more importantly, the love and respect of her husband, who would take a very tragic situation. He could go a lot of different other paths, but I know he wondered, what would Carol want to be done? And that's exactly what he did. He put himself in a position to make the world better and to make fewer families to have that same call. I respect everybody I serve with, and people go through a lot of challenges. There's very few people in my life that I've ever witnessed the dignity, the respect, and the honor that Andy has given to Carol. for her life, and for her memory. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.